We're here today with Patrick, one of our Stryos percussionists. How are you doing today, Patrick?
I'm doing well, thanks for asking.
Excellent. So can you tell us a little about how you chose your instrument, how you got into doing percussion?
So my mother was a musician. She was a violinist. I was the youngest of three. And she has decided that her third child was absolutely going to be a musician. So I was put in music classes from the age of 3 onwards.
And she failed with the previous two, and you were the last chance?
Not really failed, but definitely by that point they had diverged into other things, and she's like, no, I'm getting this one. She also had, her dad, my grandfather, had played in a drum and bugle corps as a kid. So she had, from her childhood, baby drumsticks about that big. And they somehow managed to get all the way down through and into my hands. And that was probably about 2 or 3, and there wasn't looking back at that point. I was very formally going to be a percussionist. I would accept no other instrument. Something you can't do now. I was insistent, I don't think you can really do that in Texas now, but I was then could be insistent that I was going to play percussion. So it really wasn't an option for whatever reason. I wish I had thought about it and knew what I was getting into, but the sheer amount of gear I own is a testament to that. But, I don't know when I chose. I've just always been a percussionist.
You said you're not sure, or you didn't know what you were getting into. Can you kind of describe what your life is like as a professional percussionist now?
So the fun thing about being a percussionist is you don't really ever know what you're playing. Depending on who I get calls from, I'm either, simple bass drum, snare drum, triangle, things like that, a drum set, keyboards, or sometimes it's entirely different things. Like I'm going to do Foley for a movie soundtrack with movie. I'm going to do hand drum stuff, or I'm going to have to learn to play instruments that I don't actually even know what they are, and I have to look up what those are. For example, tepanoxle, which is it just means log drum.
Log drum?
Yes, which is what I think. It's a log that you have little slits in and strung, but it's the Spanish Mexican word for is tepanoxle, which I'm saying incorrectly. But you have to Google that to find out what that is, to find out what that is, to find out what you're doing. Plus any other extra stuff they just don't know where to put, they put in the percussion section. So whistles, gunshots, gongs that you slowly lower into a bucket of water as you play them, because it makes the pitch go.
So some musicians just have to carry a flute case or something with them when they travel. And
yes.
For you, how much gear are we talking about?
Again, it depends on if I'm just playing triangle, that's a real easy load-in. If I'm bringing stuff for the whole section and everything, it's I usually get at the hall about an hour before everybody else, and usually I'm leaving about an hour after everybody else. That's just because it just depends. Sometimes there's so much I have to rent a truck. I mean, I own Ford Timpani, do not fit in my car. I have to get something for that.
Fair enough. And remind people what a timpani is.
It's the big drum, big kettle drum. Looks like you can have soup in it.
Feed a lot of people.
I think that, yes, that's what they're originally for, was soup. No, I'm kidding. There.
Or you could bubble toilet.
Absolutely. No, you could
plug
the hole in the bottom and you've absolutely got a cauldron there.
Well, you've mentioned a lot of different kind of instruments that you've gotten to play for various gigs. What's one that kind of stands out in your mind, or a couple that you remember specifically because of something in particular that you played or that happened, or?
I mean, the water gong. Lowering a gong into a thing of water is definitely one of the highlights, just because that is such a unique, not only is it experience and sound, everyone goes, but just that every day going to rehearsal and having to fill up a tub of water and take it in and take it and dump it out, and that by itself, it becomes a whole part of the experience. So, and that was a piece by a gentleman named Tendun, one of his cello concertos, and so I was doing that, and I was playing basically metal but folded, and you'd kind of bend it, they're called flexitones, and the pitch goes I had like 2 of those that I had to do like written out where he wanted. I don't know how close I got, but he had like actual lines drawn on the page and some other stuff.
Like the pitch raises here.
Yes, and he was very specific about, you know, and I'm like, I'm not that good. And I said one of the others was playing wood blocks, but he was doing it with the knuckles of his hands, and it was just all sorts of work. This guy's the same guy who also wrote like a concerto, a water concerto, where you have like 4 percussionists who just literally have bowls of water that they swish or move or punch. Yeah. So those are fun, and then you get on the very, you know, classical side. You know, the Rachmaninoff second piano concerto is like a duet between the pianist and the triangle player. And that was nerve-wracking because you don't want to mess up the solos.
Wow.
So it's like, ding. Don't ask me, you know, singing is not my strong suit. But it's that's one of those I was like, ooh, I'm going to sit down and, you know.
You ever had anything just go really wrong in a concert?
Never. Absolutely not. It's been perfect. No, I threw a mallet across the stage once.
Oh.
Yeah, really piece called Damson Memory, which was very, and I was playing this glockenspiel part, bell part, and the guy who wrote it, George Benson, which might be his name, was a percussionist originally, and he really wrote out specific mallet changes, and so I had a tray full of mallets, and I was just very quietly moving back and forth, and I went over and I picked up the mallet, and then it flew out of my hand, and it flew all across, and it hit the music stand, and then it hit the bells, and then it hit the floor, and then it rolled across the floor, middle of the concert, by the way, and there was well, I won't say it now, but there was a little bit of an F-bomb that escaped. And I got back, and then I'm like, oh, by the way, I didn't tell you, the whole piece ends with an extended bell solo. And this is why you mark your music, because I did have several things marked in when other people entered. I'm like, aha, we're here now, and so I could finish. And then thankfully I didn't play the rest of that concert, and I wouldn't have had a little sit down. Just gonna. Yeah. But came back in, finished the concert, and you got show's got to go on.
Did your solo and everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna miss that one. That's.
Oh, that's so much fun.
No, it was not. But I thank you for that.
So, your storytelling.
Yes, the story is great. At the time, not so much.
Right, yeah. A lot of stories are that way.
Yes. Years later, I have processed the trauma.
What is something that a lot of people misunderstand or are confused about percussion?
Well, it's a real instrument for one thing. I'm here to say that's my heavy stance. It's a real instrument.
Or a lot of
real instruments. Yeah. No, I think the misconception might be that it's just one or not everything, or just that it's not everything.
You don't specialize in just
right.
the wood blocks or
right, and it's like anything you. Can we take that again? Should we go back to the misconception one, because I have a much better lead-in where I'm not touching my face. Excuse me. There we go. Actually, just no edit any of this. This was all gold. Go ahead.
So is there a misconception that some people might have about the percussion section or percussion? So what is involved with what it is that you do?
I think the real misconception might just be that it's like one thing or just a few things when it's so many. You know, it's to this day, you know, my favorite question people is find out, are you a percussionist? They immediately are like, are you in a band? I'm like, no, I'm a big one. It's got strings. But it's like, yeah, I play a lot of things. Like, you play the triangle? I'm like, yes. Really? I'm like, yes, I play the triangle. I also play drum set and snare drum and timpani and bass drum, and I can list off all the things. And it's you do have to play all of these at a fairly decent level or learn how to play them real fast, which seems to be the bigger one that we were going more. It's more like, oh, I'm going to play steel drum in 3 weeks. I should figure out what that is and how to do it. Actually, I know what it is, but I should figure out how to do it.
And procure one?
And procure one, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one too, procuring. You have to either own it, or you have to know who to call to borrow or rent or beg or, you know, steal. I didn't say steal. I meant to say that quietly. Liberate temporarily. But yeah, it's not just and that's the other, people would make jokes. What if someone called you for a gig and said you had to bring your own timpani? I'm like, yes, that I do that. That's
how it works.
That's part of how it works. No one provides you a clarinet. It's just you're expected to have your instrument, and that surprises a lot of people too. Really surprised my wife when we got married. I thought I warned her, but she's like, "Why is half my garage gone?" I'm like, "I love you."
Do you play other instruments other than all of the percussion sections?
Oh God, no. That's I have enough to deal with. I took piano when I was real young until I finally, I guess, threw enough of a tantrum. I was allowed to quit. So, getting me to do my piano practicing was not. Flashing back, I have, now that I'm a parent of my own, have so much sympathy for my parents and what I put them through, and clearly piano was not the instrument for me. So, it was fine. They just really should have early on told me I only had to use 2 fingers, and then I would have been fine. It's just the same.
Or 4 sometimes.
So
right?
4 rarely. I mean, I need to be paid extra for that. So,
can you tell us a little bit about your background as far as what all you went through, degrees and things to become a professional percussionist?
So I was in band from 6th grade onwards, with a brief break between 7th and 8th, which we don't need to go into. I was to say, starting as a freshman is weird. But I then went to college. I went to the University of North Texas, and I actually had a music education degree because I decided band directing was in my future, and then middle of my student teaching, standing in front of a very good high school band, went, nope. And then I did some other stuff for a while. I actually moved out to LA, got involved with a rock band, toured the country for a while, came back here because I'm just like, that's fun, but also 23 of the 24 hours a day are boring. And then I decided to go get a master's at SMU and got that in percussion performance and started playing. And have continued.
So if you hadn't become a percussionist, what would you have done? What instrument would you have played?
What
else would you be doing?
What else would I'd be unemployed is what I'd be doing. I don't think I'd have any other skills that involve hitting things and counting, which, I mean, that's really what I do in my job is count, and that percussion, that's what we do. I also actually do design websites and do some IT stuff, but nothing that way. I don't know, I've tried to actually leave music several times. I always make the joke I'm on career 75, and it doesn't work. I have to come back to it. There's something wrong with my brain that will not let me leave. This would be where I'm at. If I wasn't doing this or percussionist, I'd be stage managing, or I'd be working behind the scenes, or doing some sort of music related charity or something like that. There's no escape.
Where are some of the places that you've gotten to perform?
If we include the rock band, I think I was at like 40 out of 50 states, because touring around a lot, that was kind of fun. Didn't get paid anything and had to sleep in a van, but so it's like not as glamorous as it seems. It was like, yes, we played in Washington, D.C. for the sound guy. It's like, I'm definitely too old for that now. But it's been interesting because, you can get hired for orchestras and you play in the halls and you play all around the Metroplex, which is fun, but also sometimes you get just kind of one-off gigs that are just in different places. My favorite of those is I was hired to play for a wedding, but the only thing I was hired for the wedding was the recessional after they walk out. So this was at the Asian art exhibit in the Dallas Museum of Art. They had the whole wedding. They had a violinist and a cellist who did all the standard, blah, 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 all the normal stuff. And at the very end, I came up with a snare drum and a pair of brushes, and we played Bob Marley's One Love as a recessional. And that was it. It's the only thing I did. And I just literally sat this little thing behind. I just sat with a book and read, and at some point the groom and the minister were like, who's the weirdo with the drum? I'm like, hi. Your wife hired me, your wife-to-be hired me, don't worry. But it was like, they were thrilled. They were so happy with the music and everything. I was like, all right, cool. It's fun to see where people throw in music, especially percussion. It's so fun to see where they end up throwing in. You're like, yes, we need a drummer. Why? Because, okay, well, I'm available.
And when you're not in the middle of a gig, what are you doing with the rest of your time?
So I have 2 small children, so nothing. I don't do anything else. I have a job. I do my job occasionally.
Okay, you have another job.
I do have another job, yes. I am the director of operations for the Greater Dallas Youth Orchestra. So I'm in charge of basically production and scheduling and programming, and it's a huge organization and have multiple people under me. So it's definitely in the arts. So on the one hand, did any of my education prepare me for that? Absolutely not. On the other hand, did everything else I've done my entire life prepare me for that? Kind of. So that's pretty much it, though. I play, I work, and I ferry my children to and from activities. Occasionally, I see other people, and not so much.
Well, we're really glad that you got to see us today.
I escaped.
We got to see you.